Okay, our next item is the approval of minutes of the January 9th, 2025 special meeting. Anybody have any comments?
I move that we approve the minutes of January 9th special meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moving on to the Liberty Theater Preservation Alliance, request for letter of support for commemoration of Walt and Lillian Disney's wedding in Lewiston on July 13th, 1925. The Lewis Clark Chamber of Commerce and the Liberty Theater Preservation Alliance are planning an event for July 2025 to celebrate this anniversary. Have somebody here to share with us?
Yep.
Jan Johnson?
Hi, I don't know all of you, but I'm Jan Johnson from the Liberty Theater Preservation Alliance. Linnea from the chamber contacted us with an idea about creating a party that commemorates this really important historic event that occurred in Lewiston. I think Katie was kind enough to send out background information about the history, Lillian Bound's history, being born on the Nez Perce Reservation and growing up there till she and her mother moved into Lewiston when she was about 18. And then moved to California, met Walt, they married, or they fell in love, but they came back to Lewiston for their marriage. And they were married in, I think Lillian's brother's house on 3rd Street on July 13th, 1925. So there's this idea to commemorate this wedding, to really kind of try to capitalize on the history of the Disneys in this area that no one has done, even though our local historians are very well aware of the history and appreciate it. So Liberty Theater immediately got on board because we're in the process of trying to renovate and reopen the theater, and we can easily tie in Disney work, art there. So we're trying to get BDL, the chamber, and others involved to create an ad hoc committee to start planning for this party. If you read the paper this morning, Linnea had already reached out to the Disney Foundation. A granddaughter responded to her email and said, yes, what's your bank account number? So you saw that the Disney Foundation sent the Chamber of Commerce $10,000. So already we have a wonderful base to start the planning of this party and hopefully perhaps make it an annual event. Another thing that we might consider is that the Historic Preservation put a plaque on the home where the wedding occurred. So we're asking for a letter of support that you think this is a good idea, that it'll be historically, culturally, and economically, beneficial to Lewiston. And we may ask that, or you may consider appointing one of your commissioners to serve on this ad hoc committee, so you're in the middle of it. So I'm happy to take questions.
Exciting.
It is exciting.
I know that one of our most popular stops for people at the museum is the Disney display. And I know that had an offer from Mark Weiss, who has a huge Disney collection, to be able to display that during the course of this as well at the museum.
My father-in-law has some neat pictures. They've got them in their hall of the wedding and different things.
Oh,
Dick Riggs does,
really?
Dick Riggs.
Yeah.
That would be
So
wonderful.
I'll talk to him about that.
What the party would exactly look like, of course, we're still planning. I think Linnea has already figured out that the 13th July this year falls on a Sunday, which might not be the best day for having a party, but that's all to be worked out. Of course, there would be a tribal participation because of her history in the Nez Perce tribe, growing up there. I just found out from the Director of Cultural Resources that his maternal grandmother played basketball with Lillian. So I'm waiting for more stories about that. So it could be dancing and drumming, and maybe someone will make a big cake. I think it can be super fun, but a lot of details to be worked out. Ed, questions?
It sounds like a great idea. I'm glad that we got Linnea on board because she is a fantastic facilitator and is the go-between. I'm glad that she also has taken over BDO. I kind of think that's awesome too.
Yes.
I think, so anyway, enough of that, but just this whole idea, I just, to bring it to light the Disney history of our community is it's fantastic.
Madam Chair, you need a motion?
Is there any other discussion or? So would we like to entertain a request then? Entertain her request for a letter of support then?
So this is not gonna be a vote, it's just listed as, but you guys can decide that yes.
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 Okay.
Sure.
So we're directing staff to do so.
Just get it done.
And then does anybody want to volunteer to be on the committee?
When, you know, people,
Could we have more than one or?
I'm sure,
yeah.
sure they'll take as many of you that would like to participate as.
Winter meetings.
Well, we don't know yet. We're
Okay.
just trying
Just
to
to get
put
it
the
started.
ad hoc
Okay.
together, but we're getting close with your, with your participation. I think we now have the chamber, we have the Liberty, we have BDL with the chamber and now you. I think we've got enough to get starting and maybe this core group can figure out, is there some other entity like the Nez Perce County? Should we invite a county commissioner? I mean, I think we can make those decisions once we become a group and start.
I'd like to participate in the ad hoc committee.
Wow, we're gonna have the whole.
If there's two, if that's, yeah. if
Well,
two
I'm gonna
make it-
ask Katie to just send names to me. Does that work?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, and once we find out the days and times, because that's gonna be a.
absolutely. We'll try to make it work so. And I think Gary Bush will be probably our main member representing the Liberty. I'm not sure if I'll be there or not. It kind of. Well, good. Everybody likes a good party, I hope. And this one, I will add that something that's important to Linnea, this is her idea and I support it, is everybody knows Walt Disney. Walt is everywhere. Virtually no one knows Lillian. And this is an opportunity to really shine a light on Lillian and her contributions.
We're so grateful to her that we have Mickey Mouse and not Mortimer Mouse, right?
Exactly.
Well, speaking of that, I know you're talking about a plaque. You know what would be cool with that house? And I mean, I know it's probably way more money than we could ever do. Maybe Disney would do it, and we'd probably have to go through licensing and stuff. It'd be cool to have a little statue of Mickey holding the sign in front of that house.
It really
Well,
would.
but some of the owners don't want that.
Well, we'd have to find out. I mean, apparently it's just been sold. I think they're new, from what Linnea said, there's new family.
They fixed
But
the
I-
house up, I think, after.
It would be cool.
Well, I think
Just a little
I think thinking about these things,
Mickey.
using our imagination, this is an opportunity to use our imagination. We don't always get that opportunity, so.
Let's dress that up like Mickey Mouse. You can march around in front of the house.
Thank you all. Your support really makes me happy because we really need something that we could come together as a community together and work on. So thank you. Okay,
Cool.
Thank you.
for sure.
Okay, moving on to old business. We have our priorities plan for 2025.
Okay, so after the last meeting, we kind of went through the priorities plan. And so the one that's in front of you is a much edited version. So I took out everything that we were kind of wishy-washy on, or that was not going to be a priority for you guys to work on in this coming year. I left the things that you guys expressed interest in, or were like, yeah, let's do, good. So that information remains in this current version. And then when we review again next year, I'll throw everything back in. So items to highlight. As we talked about before, we will annually request may be declared as Historic Preservation Month. So I'll get that form together so that we can get that turned in this month. be on kind of the schedule for that. Okay, so we talked about, so look for ways to engage, to enlarge the audience for historical preservation ideas that affect the community in a positive manner. So there had been a suggestion to highlight the Bargain Hunter Mall since it's currently undergoing a renovation. And maybe coming up with before and after photos and a narrative in conjunction with the new opening. And this could be like a social media post that we put out or just information we put on the website. So I added that one. I think at our next meeting, I will bring 9A like in front of the group, so list historical registry properties on the website. We do have a link to the registry from our website currently. But we have talked about in the past about just listing historically significant properties. And so that started the work you guys are currently doing on the historic churches list. So as we're kind of moving through that project, I think we could also look at other buildings, like houses that we've awarded Orchid Awards to, or just other buildings in general. Things that are listed on the walking tour, things that we assigned plaques to when we did the plaques project. Coming up with what else might be interesting to add to the website as like a list. So that'll be something that I'll bring in front of you guys as I have time to accumulate all that information. We had talked about HPC sponsoring a speaker on interesting subjects related to historical preservation or the history of the area. And we discussed the need to find a funding source for this and whether or not that could be a grant application. Dennis, you said that the Nez Perce Historical Society had access to some additional grants that maybe we aren't aware of or aren't able to access, and that you would follow up if there might be some way to connect those two things together. So I added that to the list. And then Tamara sent me a bunch of great suggestions post-meeting, and so I've added some of those to the list also.
Maybe this is a good time to insert right there. We have received about $8,500 worth of grants, and a portion of that can be non-Lewis Clark related presentations. So there is definitely we should really work on that, because we could pay a speaker $150 or whatever that we normally pay. And I think the grants were approved and the money is in the bank, so we could look at that, and I can certainly bring that up again at the.
Super, I will add that note that, and that can be something that we explore further. Okay. So we've had a continuing conversation about how do we get information to people who either own historic properties or maybe purchasing historic properties, you know, the change of hand of properties. We've talked about a lot of different things. So Tamara suggested creating a map and a list of the historic buildings in the downtown. So that would probably be some sort of extension of like the walking tour list to include other ones that aren't called out specifically in that map. But she thought maybe we could pull other buildings that are on the registry. There's only a couple, so I don't think that would be too difficult. And then also include the overlay district up in Normal Hill and include the addresses that are listed up there. And then come up with a checklist of requirements that would kind of echo our review process for design guidelines. So that people who are potentially purchasing those buildings would know what kind of comes along with having a historic property. And so that would be something that we could like hand out to realtors, we could maybe hand out to lenders, we could hand out to title companies. And then, kind of encourage them to provide that paperwork when those addresses come up in closings, right? So that was an idea. And then her other idea, and this one might be a little more difficult for us to do, but it's still a good idea, and I did want to bring it up to the group. So whenever real estate properties are listed, a majority of the time, they go into a system that's called the multi-listing service, the MLS. And all realtors use that for the most part. There's definitely some things that don't get put on there, but for the most part, everything gets put on that multi-listing service. So she thought that maybe we could have a commissioner monitor that. And maybe on a monthly basis, be checking all new listings. And if there were addresses that corresponded with that list of all the ones in the West End District and the Normal Hill Heritage Overlay, that then they could reach out to the listing agent via email and provide that same information that we would come up with, the checklist, here's the list of properties, here's what it means to be in one of these areas. And then ask them that they share that information with anyone interested in the property.
I know that in those realtor groups that they always usually have either a monthly or a weekly sales team meeting. And, maybe hit the majors like Windermere and
I
Century.
have done that
Oh, we have done
in the
that.
past, yes, and I've attended their lectures.
Okay, good. So is that something that you want to appoint somebody to do, or is that something that you want to do, or?
It's not something I want to do again. No, I've done. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's gotta be, it's the presentation plus there's gotta be at least, 10
Or more.
or more.
I've been to several of them and presented.
It doesn't seem like it really made a difference.
No. Not at all.
And
Okay.
so, if anything would, it would be this idea, but it would be a lot of work for somebody. Because
Yeah,
really,
you'd have to create all those
yeah,
documents.
well,
Those
and
are
also
this.
just the monitoring, because it changes every few days.
Yeah.
Stuff will get up and sold in a couple weeks, so
Right.
Is it,
even once a month isn't gonna catch them all.
is it possible that knowing before you move on a house or make an offer, you're in a historic district that has some requirements as far as what you can do, gonna inhibit a sale?
Not necessarily.
I mean,
I
a
mean, that-
realtor wouldn't see that as a negative.
Oh, no, some of them do see it as a
That's what
negative.
I-
100%.
okay,
That's
so-
the problem.
Yeah,
That information may not be shared. at the
exactly.
time.
No, it's a perception thing, for sure.
But could there be a mailing after the fact to that homeowner so that at least they know moving forward? There are some,
I mean, there could, again, that would be a heavy
Monitoring
lift on the
it. Yeah,
monitoring.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, because there are properties that hit and the next day they're done. And you don't necessarily the MLS doesn't necessarily provide that buyer
Yeah.
information.
Would it be helpful to let them know how many certificate of appropriateness that we pass? I mean, and how many we fail. If they saw the numbers, they would, maybe that would relieve their,
We've only ever failed two.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think-
Yeah. So it's not a big restriction because we usually approve them,
Yeah.
So maybe if they knew that number, they would not be so worried.
I mean, I feel like anything that's another step. I mean, they think it's annoying that they have to get building permits to legally do work, so.
Yep.
Of course, then they also think it's annoying that people did not get building permits when a homeowner wants to see, they can tell that work has been done in a home and they want to see basically proof that it was done correctly.
Mhm.
Or you got a neighbor that just does willy-nilly stuff. And if they did get the permits, they might have not been so willy-nilly,
Right. Why my house got on fire, I mean, there's. It's one of those, I find that it seems like it's a catch-22. It seems like some realtors really like having that additional information and want to have that information and really do try to understand it. And some realtors just want to make a sale and they think that any additional information that might be construed negatively, even if it's not negative information, they see that as a barrier to making their sale, and so they don't want to.
Seems a part of disclosure to me, though.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree.
Yeah.
That's
How about
the whole
title
thing.
companies?
That's what we've discussed, is how do we get that?
So I had reached out to other,
At that point, that's a bad time.
I think so too.
yeah, one, so think about how many pages of title paperwork you get when you purchase
I
a
don't,
house, right?
I know,
Like-
and you're,
it's like
you're
three bazillion.
numb to it by the end.
So, I had reached out to a previous CLG community, and they had something in place where it was a part of the title that you're in this historic district. And they said it didn't make any difference either. People just ignored it. Because we thought for a good chunk of time, we're like, that's a great way to do it, because then it's recorded against the property, you know, you go and you look up the stuff, it's there.
Mhm.
Still did not, they said it was not, helpful at all.
It's like a lot of work to not get a whole lot out.
Yeah.
Right.
Those little sheets that they print out, like you'll see, sometimes they'll put it in front of the house, have all the information, maybe they could stick it somewhere on that, you know, where you go by and.
But that's a
Again,
living
It's
thing.
the
Yeah.
same
Yep,
thing, yeah.
again, that's,
And 90%, I gotta tell you, so as a salesperson, you want the sale. 90% of the
That's their
time,
pay-
you're
yeah,
not
that's
gonna
bread
bring
and
up
butter.
anything that could be a hindrance to getting paid, because that's your living. So yeah, I mean, you can't blame them, but on the other hand, it's,
I mean, I think coming up with ideas of how we can share information with that section of people is always great.
And that group changes. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
And
it's,
then there's that, I mean, I think there's just a lot of moving pieces, and there's only, you know, so much time and energy and effort that this body.
Mhm.
And on the MLS listing, it's not like a checkbox, historical
No.
home or.
Mhm.
I don't think so. I mean, I could definitely like reach out to some brokers and be like, hey, when you enter this, do you have a section for this
Just curious,
information?
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matters.
Anyways, just wanted to share. So continuing on, so then under residential building, Mara suggested if there would be any possibility with working with like our local building material supply companies and see if they would be willing to offer some sort of historic restoration discount for anyone who's updating a historic building. So ditto, you know, you would provide them with like a list or something. I know that there are spec sheets from the Park Service regarding, you know, what true restoration looks like, those sorts of things. But so maybe those building supply companies would be willing to do like a small discount if people were buying specific items. That would be something for us to research. Okay, so then moving on. Again, I think as we're working through like the historic buildings list, the churches list, those sorts of things, I think we'll move into this in ongoing historic priorities to come up with, you know, snippets that can be shared on social media with a photo and a short narrative about a building. I think we're just gonna work towards that, and then that becomes something that we do on a regular basis. We briefly discussed the Orchid Awards, and like I like to remind you guys, it's always good, you know, Orchid Awards won't be until next year in 26, but it's always good to be kind of paying attention to houses or buildings that you see people doing renovations, because sometimes, especially in Normal Hill, it might be something that does not require a certificate of appropriateness for, so painting and just cleaning up a yard and stuff like that. But always good to watch kind of what's going on in the neighborhoods, and seeing if there are buildings that are being improved. That might be something that we want to honor, in our next go around. And so the rest of that kind of goes along with, Orchid Awards stuff. And then ditto moving into, our previous plaques project. And I think this continues to come up. And so I think as we go through that historic buildings list, I think this might be something we want to pursue, is doing another plaques project. Whether that be something where we just identify properties and provide the information, and maybe we even reach out to property owners and be like, you could purchase your own plaque. And provide that information, or if it's something where we would look for grant funding, and do a whole nother project specific to like residential homes. So. That one's on there. And then restoration possibilities, we had talked about like city-owned properties and things that were going on with city-owned properties. We talked about the Carnegie Building. They are working on some, I wouldn't say updates, like restoration things, like they were like cleaning up windows and cleaning up doors, and I think they're getting ready to paint.
The tram needed some,
Yeah,
They're doing some repair
Stairs.
stuff. The stairs needed some stuff.
I talked, when I had my meeting with the mayor, interview, whatever, I mentioned that building, he said there's no money from the city, they're not gonna, he wants to sell it, they don't wanna.
Yeah, they're not gonna do a full restoration, but I know they're doing some work. It is,
So
I
the gap-
don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
been paying attention to city council meetings, but there's been a lot of conversations about deferred maintenance on city buildings, because that just has not been a priority for previous councils. And so unfortunately, that means that buildings can get run down. The Carnegie Building specifically is one that the city does not occupy. We lease that out to another party. But I do know that they are doing some kind of touch-up work there.
so, yeah, I was wondering, in those lease situations, who is responsible
I have no idea.
for maintenance?
I have no idea.
It's
I'm
in the
not
lea-
privy
it's
to
in the
the
lease.
details of the lease.
Well, I'm sure it's in the lease, but I'm just
Yeah, the
wondering,
state laws too, yeah.
who is?
I would imagine that the city is still responsible, but I honestly do not know. Okay, so then, we talked about the towers. I know that the Modi Park Conservatory people were working on trying to do some grant funding to do some restoration of towers. There had been conversations about, the steps between the Normal Hill area and downtown, specifically the scary stairs.
Brush needs to be done.
I just had Public Works reach out to me, so I don't know if they're trying to figure out something with that in conjunction with another project. 'Cause we were trying to find some past information that's a couple of years old on when those had been evaluated. And then Trevitt Park had been brought up. I need to reach out to Parks and Rec is kind of in flux right now because they don't have a director and they're doing some kind of rearranging of stuff. But I need to reach out to them again and see what's going on with Trevitt Park, if there's something where we can partner with them, if there's something where we can be looking for grants. Just kind of get lay of the land there. It's the one right below the old Civic Theater on the top of the Ninth Street grade.
With the pergola.
That's
the
Modi.
white pergola.
Yes.
What's the name of that park?
Trevitt.
Rabbit, thank you.
Thank you, Katie, that's really.
Yes, thanks for updating. me.
Okay, so that's only stuff on that. All right, Mr. Dennis has to go.
I need to go, but I also need to underscore that the March 6th meeting will be extremely important for the Liberty to stay on track for its grant, assuming our grants will be honored by the federal government.
Yes, so the Liberty Theater will, for their marquee, are tentatively on that agenda for us to review the marquee sign.
They are going to have things into you by the 18th of this month. So,
That's my understanding.
you know, that's what I hear. We met with the architects and they are agreed to do that. So that March 6th meeting will be important. Stay on track.
Yes, okay. So that is that on priorities plan, so.
Next is the Historic Churches Project.
Okay, so we had kind of gone through this, well, each meeting, we're kind of going through this list a little bit. So after the last meeting, I said that I would try to take some time and go through the Historic Lewiston Facebook page that Mr. Branting runs and see what I could find on each of the churches, because I know that he covers stuff from time to time. So I spent some time going through there and searching for addresses or names or, anything that would pop up. And so I've included in your guys' packet that same spreadsheet that I've been handing out. And then I put in all the information that I have been able to collect thus far. And then I also added to this the information that commissioners who were able to provide me with information had sent me thus far. So there's a little bit in most of them now. Not everybody has information yet, but most of them have something now. So I just wanted to provide that information and just kind of keep this as a reminder to, keep working on it. I found it really interesting. Trinity Lutheran has moved around a lot because they have touched so many of these church buildings. It's funny. Because they just kept popping up and things. I'm like, oh, they were here. And oh, they went over there. And then someone bought them out and then they went somewhere else. So even just like the tic-tac-toe kind of pattern of churches, we have churches that purchased land and then they did not build there, but another church bought the land from them and then they built there. Or they would kind of hop around. So kind of a fun project for me. But so providing you guys with the information and then just a reminder if there is a blank spot next to your name on the list. Please take some time and see if you can track down information.
I think Congo Press bought the land where the one up behind the,
Broadview, yep,
yeah, but
they did.
the other Methodist church.
Yes, Methodist Church,
Yeah.
yeah.
They sold it to the Methodist church.
And then the Methodist Church built up there. Anyway, so that was all in this, just keeping it in your mind and showing you the information that I was able to glean, mostly so that you don't, repeat my work. No
Thank
use,
you.
no use in doing that. So just, continue to think about it, continue to reach out to those congregations if possible and try to glean information. I have not made it over to the Historical Society yet. Still on my list to see if I can get more out of their archives. But this was what I was able to get out of Mr. Brantine's, just his posts. Because as we had discussed before, I don't want to bother him right now.
When Mr. He brought in that map or the collage of the churches, are we still thinking about a poster thing for that?
That'd be
Do
so
something
cool
like
to be
that.
able
We
to
could
do
have that,
something.
for a fundraiser. Is that,
Have to have an artist of
You would
some
have to have an
sort.
artist. So
yeah.
I think right now we work on the narratives and the histories,
Mhm.
and then we'll figure out if we can go that direction to actually do artwork like that. Because yes, that is super cool, but that's way past my capabilities as a human being.
Fun, just sketch it out.
Right. I can sketch out a quilt. I don't know that I could sketch out a
Yeah.
building. That's
That's what
not
I was
quite-
thinking, maybe a photo,
Photos, yeah.
some kind of photo collection or something. That would
Put it
be.
there.
Yeah, because I know that like the lithograph thing that Dennis had brought for us to see before was, I think, from a collection of photos, but because it's just the outlines, right? And so it's the idea of the whole kind of a landscape of them all.
Yeah, the
together.
artist impression of those buildings.
Yeah.
So
with
It
their different
does, it does
staples.
take some talent to.
Yeah.
That's not
why,
a talent.
That's why you get maybe a picture, you take your pictures and then AI them somehow, make them look.
Right. Someone who's way more
Yeah,
technically
someone
savvy
smart.
than myself
Yeah.
would have to do that. Okay, so that's all I have on those
Okay.
things. So just a reminder, keep on those and take a look at what I put in there. If you know additional information, please send it to me, so I can add an update. And we'll just keep moving on.
Okay, so moving on to commissioner comments. Does anybody have anything they wanted to discuss or share?
Sorry, I missed last week meeting. My daughter got married.
Exciting.
Oh,
It's really super exciting. Yes.
Giveaways and that good
Yeah, I
stuff.
did.
Yeah, so exciting. That is exciting.
Mhm.
You just cry.
Yes, damn it. And then but I also gained a son. He actually took my name, which was kind
Oh,
of,
that's cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, she
But
told-
he was adopted and then got estranged from his. Sorry about all the personal information, but anyway, yeah, so
Gained a son.
legacy lives,
That's cool.
yeah.
It looks like our council liaison just joined us. Does she have anything she'd like to share?
Yeah, sorry, I was here. I was just in the background. I will share the Disney donation update and give at my counselor comments at this next meeting. And I was trying to gather for the art, are you talking about someone painting something somewhere you're trying to find?
So we had so Dennis had brought in from another community, a lithograph of churches, and it's like all the different outlines of the churches in that community, like overlaid to each other, all their historic churches, and so that was part of the impetus of us kind of going through the historic churches in our city, to pull, you know, the information about them and their histories and stuff. I don't know that we're gonna get as far as to do a print of some sort, but that would be a cool thing to do. It was a really neat picture that he shared with us. That it was like a framed, I don't know that it was a painting, it was a lithograph, but it had the outlines of all the different historic churches, so all the different steeples and just, you know, roof shapes, and it was a Walla Walla.
I think so.
My mom does painting. I don't know if you guys know, she does the paintings for the Civic Theater. To those shows that they have. So I could maybe ask her if she would be interested in doing something or seeing if she's able to do something like that.
I think Mr. Heckner, someone else brought a couple people up too at the, well, we mentioned this before, I don't remember what their names were. I know Mr. Heckner that does all the NAIA for the,
Oh, yeah.
would be one, and I know him very well.
Jody Millick's just
Yeah, and
talented.
Jody, so we've got some people we could ask if they could volunteer their time, you know.
Yeah, so I think it's something that we'll continue to talk about as time goes by.
Okay, I'll keep that in my back pocket. You guys just let me know if you'd like me to ask her.
Sure. Perfect.
Anything else you want me to bring out to this coming Monday's meeting?
Think so. I think after they've actually formed that ad hoc committee, and I know that the mayor is aware of it too, I think he was gonna solicit a council member to also participate. I think once that committee has been actually formed and starts meeting, then we would probably have more information that we would want you to share, but since they're not fully formed yet, I think maybe just the idea that something is coming in the summer to celebrate the Disney marriage, and that there will be a party, and that the city is supportive of it. I think that would be good, just to get that kind of the word out that it's coming.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. And sorry, I'm not able to be there in person. I had some vehicle issues, so I don't have anything to drive.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kathy.
Mhm.
Do we have any other staff comments?
So just query of commissioners to attend our March 6th meeting. As Dennis mentioned, the architect who are working on the marquee restoration for the Liberty Theater Alliance have reached out, and they are planning to get their information in so that they can attend that meeting and have their certificate of appropriateness be reviewed at that time. So if anyone's unable to come,
Okay, we'll
you're a
not
no.
do
Okay. Mr. Ed, I need you here so you can lead my meeting, okay? And then the last thing was just, I did include an updated roster for you guys. Lisa and Lorinda just re-upped their membership, so it just has new dates on it. Just so everybody's aware, Dennis will renew at the end of this year. And then I think my other newer commissioners are at the beginning of 26. So just to keep everybody on track. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, if that is all we have, then adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all for being here.
Hi, have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Where did you have your wedding at?